Good evening, everybody. And this time of year, what's the one thing we want to be sure to say?
Happy New Year.
That's right. Happy New Year. So shall we all try that? Happy New Year. Yes, it is a new year, 2019. So thank you all for being here. It's great to see you. I know also that a year ago tonight, it was icy and stormy, and there was 6 inches of snow on the ground. And I know that because we had to cancel a reading. And that was the second one in a row. We had to cancel last year, December and January. So Kristen and I actually had a conversation when we were doing the planning for the readings and working out the schedule, saying, do you really want me to read in January? Because, I think Kristen's right around the corner there, because we had this situation last year. But it didn't happen again. So that's great. And we're thinking it's not going to happen. So that's good. Thank you all for being here. So we are very excited about it. I want to make some thanks to the city of Milwaukie for supporting the series, which they have from the inception, for the Letting Library. So the Letting Library is in temporary quarters, and I don't know if you've seen the building over here is demolished. Exactly, I know it's down, and the library is in temporary quarters, about 3/4 of a mile north. I have been saying it was in a double wide, but there's actually 9 trailers, and they took 9 trailers and they put them all together and created a space for the library. And I feel that way too. It's the fact that it's trailers. They've done a really nice job, I think, for temporary quarters. So the library it's moving along. One thing I should tell you is that because we all need to be a little flexible, the library is starting new hours because of their different location, and they're closing an hour earlier, starting in February. They're at 9 to 8. So that's going to impact us a little bit because staff need to be here to open facilities and close facilities. So starting in February for the rest of the season, which are 5 readings, we're going to start at 6:30. So it's going to be a half hour earlier. But I think that's okay, and we're starting to tell people, this is the first time that we've told people tonight, but it'll be in the invitation, and we are going to have a new poster, a new flyer, that's going to say 6:30 rather than 7. So thanks to the Letting Library, and thanks to the Poetry Committee. I think you all know that we have a Milwaukie Poetry Series Committee, and I wonder if I could ask the Poetry Committee members who are here, could you stand? Please, and Dan's already standing, and I'm standing, and there's Emmett. Thank you very much, everybody, for serving on the committee, and I think you also know too that the committee has taken over doing the videography, videoing the readings. So we're 3 into it, and the first one, which is Samia Bashir's reading, turned out pretty well, and as we get them done, our library person, Sarah Roller, is posting them on YouTube. So that whole thing is speeding up just a little bit. So thanks to the Poetry Committee. We do have a broadside that we do of one of Kristen's poems. And I'm just checking if everybody has a broadside. If you don't, one will be passed out to you. I want to say some things, some announcements of events that are coming up. And I know there are 2 more announcements in addition to the ones I'm going to make. We are sponsoring a Friends of William Stafford. Well, it's a Stafford birthday celebration. We're sponsoring a Stafford birthday celebration on Saturday here, 2 to 4. And we will have featured readers, and we will also have an open mic. So I think we know it's to honor Bill Stafford. And there is a flyer. In fact, I have some flyers about that, which you can take with you. And there are invitations out, so we're pretty excited about that. And I was going to ask Rose, if Rose, could you say something about the one on the 17th that's happening in Oregon City?
You probably know more. I know that's going it'll be at the Oregon City Library in their special room that they have for all events. And you're gonna be reading.
Right, and you're gonna be reading.
Yeah, and Beth, and I forgot who else. A couple others. Mo might read, I think.
The librarian, the Oregon City librarian. So, you know, another William Stafford birthday celebration in Oregon City at the Oregon City Library, and that's on the 17th, which is actually his birthday, at 6 o'clock. And I know there's another announcement to make. And I think Emmett's got one he wants to say something about.
Oh, you hear all that cracking when I stood up? Hey, good evening, everyone. Some of you know last year I hosted around Valentine's what I call the Love in a Box in Chocolate. Some of you went and just go to that. And it's an evening about love and celebrating love around Valentine's. Last year I had some of Oregon's finest musicians. When the steel opened up with a blues set, and I did about an hour and 10 minutes of lyrical poetry to jazz and blues. It was an absolute hit. And so I'm going to do another one again this year. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. Bring your spouse, your partner, your significant other. It's February 9th at Coalwood Golf Course. Their banquet room there at about 7:30. You need to register because seating is limited. But I don't want to give it all away. It's just a lot of surprises. So I would like to invite the poetry community. Tom, you and your wife were there and others. So.
Jane and I
was there. It was wonderful.
Yeah, it was wonderful. So for more information about that, see Emmett. And more information about the Oregon City event, see Rose. And Bill has an event.
Yeah, a week from tonight,
You want to
Barbara Drake and I are reading at Annie Bloom's bookshop at 7 o'clock. We both have new books out this year. That's the occasion.
Yeah. And what day was that?
January 15th,
January 15th, next week.
next week.
Right.
I got one too.
Okay, and Penelope has one too.
Yeah.
You lost your poem.
Oh, that's terrible.
You got
Yeah,
it.
that cannot happen.
No,
There you go.
Can't be really
Got it.
wrong.
Never use a poem.
Anyway.
Well, I'm reading at 4 o'clock on Sunday at a place that you don't have to come hear me read, but go there. Do you know Steve Williams and Constance Hall?
Yes.
They have opened a gift shop. It is on the corner of Kearney and Northwest 23rd. It's called, I never can remember what it's called. It's something like
Nobody's Business.
Like Nobody's Business. And it's all beautiful handmade things for sale. So if you want to come and hear me Sunday at 4 o'clock, then you can snoop. But you can go anytime Wednesday through Sunday.
Okay, great. Thank you for telling us about that. And any final announcements? One more thing that I had to say before introducing Kristen, and we're all on the same track here. And I was kind of waiting for David to hold up his phone and tell me if you would silence your telephonic devices. That would be great. Beepers, smartphones, cell phones, etc. So we don't have something going off while Kristen is reading. Which brings me to the introduction of our poet for the evening. And we've been looking forward to this. I've been excited about it since we knew that she was going to be here. Kristen Berger is the author of poetry collection Echolocation from Cirque Press, 2016, How Light Reaches Us, and a chapbook for the willing, and co-editor of Voice Catcher 6 with Tony Partington. Her long prose poem, Changing Woman and Changing Man, A High Desert Myth, was a finalist for the 2016 Newfound Prose Prize, and her poetry has been nominated for the Pushcart Prize and Best of the Net. Her second chapbook, Refugia, will be published from Persian Pony Press in the spring of 2019. So that's coming early next year, soon. Born in Detroit, Michigan, Kristen lives in Portland, Oregon, where she hosts a summer poetry reading series in her neighborhood farmers market in Lentz. For more information, check her website, www.kristinberger.p. Would you join me in welcoming our poet for the evening, Kristen Berger?
Thank you for coming out on this stormy, regular night on a Wednesday. It's so nice to be here. I don't know if I bugged Tom into inviting me, but I know I've tried to come for several years. So thank you to Tom and the committee, to Emmett and Dan for having me in this space. When I come to these readings, I feel very much at home, and that there's always something that happens that's a surprise. I walk away just feeling like I've, had a good meal. And so being on this side of the audience is a little terrifying. And I was feeling like, those thunder coats that they put on dogs? You're my thunder coat. So there's friends in the audience, there's faces I know. This is a warm community that supports poetry, so I know I'm in safe hands, but I'm a little nervous. Tonight I'm going to read from two collections. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. Okay. One is my new collection, Echolocation, which came out this past year, 2018, from Cirque Press, which is an imprint from Cirque Journal. Some of you have been published there. They really support the Northwest poets up from Alaska all the way up into Idaho and Montana. And they started their press this year, and I think they've put out 6 titles, so it's pretty cool. And I'm also going to read from my new collection, Refugia, just a short portion. It's a small sequence of poems, and so I'm going to read at the beginning a little of that. But I'm going to open with a poem from Echolocation, and I was thinking about having good days and bad days and how we sort of classify them, and kind of really how dumb that is. Like, we have these days, and we have days that are hard, and we have days that are, we feel like we've, checked all the boxes and that we feel like we've succeeded, but really they're just each their own, I wouldn't say gift, they're their own thing that we work through. And so I wrote a poem called A Good Day, which for me is a day in which I notice as much as I can and am as present as I can. And it takes place up at Powell Butte, where I spend a few times a week. I'm up there either walking with my dog or I'm running. A good day. The sky pressed on us like a good dream. Dogs with their people tracked 16 shades of green. Cloud lid gone. White-capped mountains, nearly forgot, spoke their names to the horizon. Sheared by winter ice, pear trees resuscitated air, mouth to bloom to blue. The small moon of a newborn cried, pressed to his father's chest. Love was a breath we were invited to take, wild, fond, near. So the next 6 poems are from Refugia, and they are sort of a meditation on winter. I wrote them 2 winters ago during the big snowstorm in January, right after all that ice storm. I think there was a reading that was canceled here. And I was actually born in an ice storm in Detroit, and I love snow, and I miss it. I've been here for 25 years, but I miss sort of living with snow for 7 months of the year. And it's a little hard to have to go seek it out. And so when it comes to visit our town, I'm pretty jazzed. And that winter I just had was sitting with the snow, writing about it, but also mourning it, knowing that at that time, Michigan, where I'm from, was receiving no snow at all. So it's a meditation on sort of being in love with it and also mourning its passing. So each poem is a short poem, and it's followed by a 3-line sort of little sidecar poem. And I'm just going to read through them all at once. Oh, and the term refugia comes from sort of a pocket of in nature where it's like a holdout, a place where snow might survive, or life basically that is resistant or resilient. When winter runs out, who will hold the night clock? Will the heart notice slow, stop roaming and skipping beats? The earth prefers part-time awakeness, tilts to jut our time capsules. At sea level, snow comes to smother us into dreaming. In the warm November garden, we have been young too long. Trenches connected us then, 4-foot-high crosscuts of the week's blizzard. Our fathers dug us out, wet and red-cheeked, stomping at each other's doors, always evening in the whipped blue drifts. Dead grass dug deep became our muffled fires. Icicles snapped from gutters we licked into marshmallow spears. It didn't have to end. Our mothers' voices shouldn't have been able to reach us, but they did. Called us out, called us in. Meet me in the snow meadow with the frozen ponds skirting the woodlot, the one between childhoods. Hummingbirds bench at iced feeders by the torpor of taillights. Snow blots the air like triggered pigeons. Wind uproots trees, mostly for the fox. Beneath shelves of slate, far off in the mountains, moths whir the alarm of heat's buckshot. Bears claw out, feed and fatten like apples. We thaw one day, then the next, sky shot. Between lip and tongue, spring's secret clover leaf. We are near threatened. The Au Sable should be iced over, hemmed by young jackpine and birch. We could walk all day missing the Kirtland warbler, soft bevel of gold clinging to summer's tough bark. Let's self-resuscitate. Keep our chins up. There still may be time. They are long gone, flying figure eights over the Bahamas, trading our new world apologies for their old blue-washed paradise. Lace up and stand. No river breakup. Inch out and lock hands. On the north side of July's slope, under a huckleberry wind, patches of snow survive. Refugia. Glacier lilies divide deep beneath the blankets. We couple like a storm buckling, seeds of dust, cloud to core. We fall, supersaturated lore. You drift in, I avalanche too. Banks bury the ways we have known each other. Apple blossoms have yet to fall away. Time is our coal bed. Dawn tats a banded blue to our breathing, our waking. I pull you into me like the swallow that rescues blue yarn from the rackline for her nest of moss, a low-hanging cottonwood ornament at the river wayside. Like her, we might save the world, or at least save the rough light. The animal in me hunts for a time before it all began. So that's just a little portion. And yeah. And the next series of poems are from the new book. And I stole this title from a friend. I think I have his blessing. I never actually asked, but I stole it off of Instagram. My friend Simmons, who's the editor of terrain.org, posted a picture of a torch cactus bloom, but it was in November, which apparently is not when they bloom. And so his text was, "One of the lovelier signs of the apocalypse. Torch cactus bloom, mid-November." When a poem first comes to bear, it lives for a while in the cool head, equatorial belly, flume of ear and tongue, until the body wants to shape it with air, forced like a bulb indoors. Like love, it thrives out of season. This should not be happening, this sullen hope, while the world turns upside down, fleecing and greed hollowing us out. How does the earth tilt towards a deaf darkness while the body somewhere aches toward bloom? It makes no sense. Dreams of Ocotillo and freedom of passage, beautiful thoughts. Under thin pajamas, flushed and ready, defying snow falling in blankets tonight, just a few degrees north, a few thousand feet up. Along this longitude of uncertainty, let's inhale this rare thing like a blessing, like a hothouse. And today, when I was up running on the butte, I could see, it was a really high cloud cover, and I could see snow falling just out of reach. And if I didn't have to be here and I could run that far, I would run to the snow. But it was just really nice to see it. I could see actually towards Mount Jefferson has a good view. So things are getting white up there. At 4,000 feet. I like when you hold my back as if for the first time, for the last time, for all the times your hands have come to know my leaning, the way I want to fall to your meadow, the way you keep me pressed to the pauses, our dipping mouths, our startled chests. A Rufus Hummer defends paintbrush nectar, his scree of sweetness. There is a way you cut me, and I drink. I don't think I mentioned before, but I'm going to read mostly like this is a love story. I wrestled with reading some other pieces that might be more applicable to the world out there and the shutdown happening. But I really want to honor the things that don't shut down, like this. Although I would gladly give my poetry earnings to some federal worker right now. And one thing I was thinking about with having poetry as sort of this other vocation in our lives. It doesn't pay very much, but we're often blessed with time and space. And I've been blessed with a few residencies down at Playa at Summer Lake, where some of the poems from this book were written, and where I met the artist for this book, Sarah Klein. She's a printmaker from San Francisco, and she was working on this series while I was writing some of these poems. And then it was afterwards that I had asked her if I could use some of her work. So that's where this comes from, and it's just, I'm so in love with this cover. So here's a poem for Summer Lake. High Desert Negative. Don't go back. Don't revise. Don't redream or fill in the shadows with color. Don't rely on breath to tell you are alive. The world is not your mirror. Don't start now. Don't turn out the lights or hoard the extra blanket. Don't forget how bare skin never forgets. Don't pull away. Don't rely on yourself. Don't find words. Don't settle. Don't wait for a hard frost to carry your foot on the playa. Don't keep out of the wind. Don't walk back to the house until you can see sun on the panes. Don't wait for the moon to set or a pair of cranes to carve morning away with their ambitious wings. And I realized after going through both of these books, the new one and this one, that I have repeats. So this is actually, part of this poem appears in Refugia, but I expanded it in this one. And it's really strange to me how I didn't notice that before, and how poetry just sort of like has this life of its own. And so I hope that something of what I'm reading connects with you. But I'll read this one because it's about weather, which we all share. The atmospheric river has plans. My hand rests on your chest, breath shallowing only a few days ago, according to the stars, a storm gathering water to the hem of sky. This is a wind poem, inspired by earth, latticed with disappearing rivers. I gave birth twice to show the universe I was serious, lost twice because the body knows better. Every empty space is a leaning act of guesswork. The pot waiting for Sunday soup, air climbing its own steam. You are beautiful when turned in dream, gone from me, heartbeat plucking collarbone, breath beneath dream. So much rush at the door. It's good, isn't it? Sleeping, our backs against tomorrow's calm, the weathered trick of time. Law of lovers in other towns. Across the blaring crosswalk, she leads him to where blooming must be, within the shorn green park, hope helixing like swallowtails, the splayed latticework, cranes above sky rises. Kisses take their time, finishing and beginning. Her feet give out. He hails a cab, finds ramen, feeds her the good broth, offers the first easing into white sheets. They say, come, taste giving, sip marrows receiving. They are beautiful. The moon burnishes their lengthening with just enough light to read their names. I am entering this winter with no canned goods in my house, which, I mean, I have store-bought canned goods, but none that I actually canned, which feels like a big omission. And I don't think my children are exactly mad at me, but I think they're pretty disappointed because I usually can peaches and jam, and I have nothing. So I was putting this book together. So that's my excuse for not having any dilly beans or spaghetti sauce. But I did eat a lot of fruit over the summer at our farmer's market where I have a poetry series. So this is for the poor old peach. Freestone. Peaches know. They sit calmly in bins, begging for rain, draw you under the white canopy. Freestones come easily and glow in your palm. The tender color of me, your thumb nicking the pit, pressing, hold one and another, weigh the crushed velvet, and choose. And I was also trying to describe rotary phones to my kids. My son and I love to go to not just thrift stores, but like old antique stores, and we just walk around, and he'll bring out like, you know, a VCR recorder, you know, and what's this? And so he's been educated. I feel like I'm doing my job. They all have typewriters. But the rotary phone, I was trying to explain like how you have to wait for it to turn back, and if you goofed up, you'd have to click on it and start over, and it's just another world to them. So this is rotary. In the delay, we find each other. Remember speaking into the round black receiver, screen stippled, hot held for the reply? Around the globe, our voices had to wing, had to perch by our beloved's ear like a nighthawk. Hunt the home voice, commit to under-ocean static, and miss by seconds the ordinary good night. The wait is one lush rose bush being watered by a hose left on in the yard. Hear roots tapping the sidewalk like a code. The whole night answers with drag and sweep against the mute dome of stars, huddle of breath, never hanging up. And I took my kids out to Eastern Oregon this summer to see Steen's Mountain, which I had actually never been to, so it was this grand adventure that we had. And even my 15-year-old, who is not too into camping anymore, not too into hiking, was sufficiently wowed. She likes driving fast, so. Not her, she didn't drive, I drove, but she liked the speed of it. So we stayed out at Crane Hot Springs, just northeast of Malheur, and I got a teepee, and we were in the hot springs, and there were thunderstorms. So it's a landscape that really inspires me, so I was really happy to be able to just both share a place that I'd been to, the Crane I'd been to before, but just to get out there and just show them there's more than this very vibrant, very wonderful green valley. There's a whole state out there. Wick. Where will wind touch first when you rise out of the pond's mineral scald? Cool exhale at the nape, or a sudden tug at the small of your back arching to make room for a whole desert of want. It will lick you as if it owns you. It will wring you dry and pull your spent breaths like thunderstorms scraping the Sage Valley floor, rainbows on their heels. There is an end to breath following breath, eventually, but not now. You came with him like a map overlaying a map, pinned and shifting an old unnamed country. Lightning tattoos the indigo ridges. You'll take it, this lashing, this aloneness, nighthawks disking spiderwebs back into the steam. Wicks still siphoning sungleam, full of memory, full of thirst. Brownfield. These fights last from season to season, scouting for a well-swept brownfield to flood and vacate. Noise extinguishes itself in the contrails. The heart wants one good panorama with no power lines. A cigarette grass fire divides rainforest from shadow, and below, a wedding ring slips into the river. It might settle into the outgoing tide, onto another finger. We could agree to send love away like that. Recall one step when you crossed from forest to alpine and knew it as home, yet had no words. In hanging valleys, small blue pools clutch every cloud. Some vanishing points wire us from birth. Tell me how the volunteer vine maple in the backyard, with its 100,000 helicopter seeds, ever tapped groundwater, how it leapt above shingles, wrung itself year after year with flourishing. I'm going to explain a little bit of this poem because when I was working with my editors at echolocation or at Cirque, it wasn't really clear what this term, the Boneyard, is. And this poem takes place in Tucson, outside of Tucson, and it's a place where the Air Force has, it's like a graveyard for all of the old bombers. Do you know the Boneyard? Oh, well, okay. Well, I don't have to explain it then. You guys know what it is. But it just, you can just drive along, and they're just waiting there for I don't know what. It's just the most bizarre horizon. So that's in this poem. The story that never ends. Hard truths come at 80 miles an hour on a seared stretch of a Sonoran highway we may never drive again. We are leaving this story. Narrow, tarred 2 lanes, Cars drafting semis, tailing the sun. Washes hold their breath in the shape of water, the shape of dust. On one side, the blown-apart sign of an extinct Tucson strip mall. On the other, Air Force bombers give up the fight in the Boneyard. Cotton tufts scuttle across 4 lanes to the safety of Ocotillo. Wheels skim the surface, and we don't touch. We may never get what we want in this lifetime. Morning comes at the pace of lemons ripening in gravel alleys. Through our luggage's hide, the golden stowaway scent might make a wheel swerve. Clinic. Such a small thing, waiting in a room for the hour when the smaller thing will be pulled from its dark closet, velvet amphitheater, hushed wings. Wait like an insignificant storm gathering off the radar. You are skirting ice. You are troubling the math. You are counting seconds until gray curtains of clouds lift and your name is called, and the skylight fills the room with blue. River keepers. They did their best. They let time slip around itself and end not. Stood in the dark and chose each other, and the walls of their dream held. He smells of juniper, hands a soft surprise. She tastes of sage, hair silvering under gold. They climb hills like goats. They carry a stubborn love. Next to each other, they slept like babies, enough nights to eventually lose track. Not an ounce of breath was wasted, and no morning was left untended. So many words still left to describe. They both are a little afraid of you, though she dreams of you nightly. Like the urgent river trundling around the bend, your ever young way. They stoop towards, study your pebbles, help each other stand. You carry all the light they will ever need. I'm going to read 2 more poems, and this one's a little long. It was written at Playa, and it's for my aunt and her son. When 4 chambers are not enough. Sometimes hearts live on the outsides of our bodies. Mothers are familiar with this sensation, calling into children's empty bedrooms. They walk down hallways, knocking twice on doors. We place palms on each other's chests while sleeping as a way of speaking. Men long to rest within the bodies of others. We live inside other people's hearts, curled white sprouts, quietly pushing out. Some hearts are houseplants sitting on sills, collecting dust on their velvet. Sometimes we don't see each other's hearts inside, glass-streaked, turning all day toward the light. Birds recognize us. They come to our windows and sometimes crash, beating at speeds that spare us the rush. Hearts reunited run out storms or judge from the highest story at the asphalt gridlock below. Wind wants to push our hearts back into our bodies like a standing wave at the mouth of a winter river. Sometimes our hearts are stronger than a spring tide. Some valves leak sorrow. Some overcompensate, beat for so long, pain is a metamorphic rock. They weaken like a cookstone split under the pressure of heat, a horse unable to canter joy down. We aren't meant to live on our disconnected ruby planets. We need hearts in various stages of repair and disrepair to keep the world beating. Hearts want to live in bodies that suspend love for a time like snowdrifts in the clefts of mountains. Some crave the space between beats, Call it peace, call it flight, leap, and call it home. And I'm going to end with a poem about Mount Lemon outside of Tucson, which I just saw some pictures that they've had quite a lot of snow. It's the most southern ski resort area in the U.S., and I was just happy to hear that they got snow this year. Sky Island Highway. Where wind muzzles hoodoos and torques mesquite, altitude switchbacks the thumbprint of time. We drive into a slot of blue shade, and the road loses us. 100 million years of sun press earth, and oracle granite keeps its poise. Light is only a day old. We are still young. Snow will settle like mica where the moment buckled. It will come, and it will be deep. Air stills. Thousands of unknown species fold their hearts and secreted limbs into the vermilion peaks of each other. Crickets, miles below, purr to the arroyos. Soon it will be time to lift ourselves and hold resin-stained hands, boulder hop to the car. We will turn a clean descent, lean into valley heat, cradled by the weight of old stars. How unalone a constellation of aspens quivering with no wind makes us. Thank you. Oh, okay. I wasn't sure what I was supposed to do. Like hide. Yes.
You read one of my two favorite poems, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
And you mentioned something about stealing from another poet. Well,
Gently borrowing.
well, Monica Drake said in Clown Girl, good clowns scrounge, great clowns steal.
I'm a great clown, great.
But in your poetry, you talk about memory. Don't edit, don't rewrite. The stones are lapped by the sea and made smooth, so memories are accessible. But memory's a very, very tricky thing.
Mm-hmm.
And as Tommy Murphy said, the older I get, the better I was. So, yeah, it's a very confusing thing. But the one thing, part of your poetry, you said, we live in the hearts of others. And the whole function of poetry is for you to touch my heart, from your heart to my heart, all of us. And I read your poetry, and you know, all of a sudden hearing it just it's a treasure. But you have lines, I love it, where the bear wakes up in the middle of winter. Imagine what the bear would think if they woke up to the creak of winter. It's just different places. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Tom.
Well, I agree with that about it being a treasure. And could you talk about who you read and who you were influenced by? And are they the same?
I read anything and everything that comes to me. I'm actually doing a show. Well, I did a show about my influences a few weeks ago on KBOO, and that was an interesting process to like figure out who that was. You know, William Stafford and Naomi Shihab Nye. I have friends here that influence me. That's a really tricky question. I would say what influenced me more was a creative writing teacher I had in high school who saw that I had the potential to be a poet, or she called me a poet and I didn't believe her. And, you know, I think it's just having those people that sort of are big influences. But I don't know, I'm just drawn to anyone who sort of speaks truth in a way that's a surprising way. Yeah. and it changes. I go back to Bill Stafford when I'm really sad. It's like my Bible. And when I'm happy too, you know, sort of like, what does Bill have to say about this? Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Sure. Anything else?
Other questions?
I can talk and I'll be here the whole time.
Yeah,
Anyone wants to
well,
talk with me?
I always ask people when they write, because I'm interested.
Oh, when do I write?
Yeah.
I have
what's
no
your-
idea. I don't know when this stuff happens. I don't have a regular writing practice. I know that sounds like lame, but I just fit it in the margins before my kids wake up, before I have to take them to school and go to work, and you know, just like everybody sort of fits it in. My residencies that I've had, both through the Spring Creek project and through Playa, have been really valuable for getting work done, but I also often feel like I'm just chomping at the bit to just delve, but otherwise I'm just, you know, writing here and there. I haven't been writing a lot in the past 9 months because this book and just organizing things have taken a lot, and working, you know, just life. Yeah. But I hope to have a daily practice one day.
Right.
Yeah, right.
I can relate to that.
Yes, Lex.
Can you talk a little bit about how you work sending poems out and then getting them back and then sending them out again and so on?
You mean the rejection process?
Your word, I'm not sure that I would think of it that way.
Okay.
But how you work that into regular practice. Now, I mean, I don't mean that you have some sort of daily practice, but it becomes part of your writing life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can you talk about how that works for you?
I often just kind of realize I might have like a whole batch of poems that are just done, and then see if they work together as batches to different journals and places. And I really try to be choosy about that because I don't want to waste their time or my time, and I try to find places I think would be good homes. I don't spend a lot of money on contests because I just don't. I will say I don't actually feel like it's too much of a rejection process. I feel like it's like, has it found its home yet? And when it comes back, it's often, you know, that editor might ask me to resubmit. So, you know, I never get too discouraged unless there's a whole bunch of them. You know, it's nice to get a little bite on your fish hook. So I call it going fishing, you know. And I haven't done it in a while, so I'll have to do it soon. Yeah.
The husband, I'm sorry, the husband of one of the poets that spoke here ran a blog or something called Poetry, in which he sort of laid bare the ugly truth that so many of the prizes are won by boyfriends, girlfriends, former students, and colleagues of the judge or judges. So it really, in some way, it's not an entirely honest process, or wasn't an entirely honest process.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've never slept my way towards the top of publishing. I don't know. I don't know. I don't pay much attention, and I also don't have a great need to win things. I'm more interested in just finding the right audience, so it can be a very small journal. It doesn't have to be an award. I've won some things, and that's really nice, but I don't. I mean, I've heard that about some contests that are, you know, there's MFA students in pools and things, but I don't know. I just stay out of it. Did you have a question?
I was just going to ask if you wouldn't mind reading.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Oh, I have it. Let me read it. But it's in my book, which has a pretty small font, so I apologize for that. I've got it. I've got my glasses, too. Yeah, I didn't read that one. I don't know why. I guess I forgot. Echolocation. Let's work this out in the dark. I find you, you find me. A snapshot under a streetlight's warm brim, small furred mouths taking moth bodies whole. Intimacy is blood in the pitched chambers, trace and return, the long foretold figure 8 of oxygenated rush. It requires a blind faith. Work and pump and beat. See where the heart strikes the scaffolding of ribs, its desire as clear as a rubied bell. Clapper suspended like a thrush, waiting for its note to fly back. Yeah, thank you.
I noticed in your book you have a number of what looks like erasure poems. Could you talk a little bit about
I'm sorry.
erasure poems?
Oh, erasure. Oh, yeah.
Poetry. So, can you talk a little bit about your work in that area?
They're not erasure poems,
Oh,
but they're just spread out, which is, yeah. And but I actually did do that with the poem that I read tonight, The Law of Lovers. I did actually do an erasure poem for that, and it didn't really jive too well. But that was like the middle part of the book has a little bit of experimentation there, and that's new for me, and it just felt fun and sort of like responsive to the impulse of those poems being sort of like bursts of moments, not sort of linear. So it was new for me. And I like the way they look in there too.
And also too, when you read, it sounds like you have a meter. There's a cadence to your reading. So on your poems that you've expanded, does that alter your meter, or does that, when you expand them like that, does that help you?
You know, that's the first time I've read one of those that out loud. It seemed okay. I don't know. It seemed to flow. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I hear what you're saying. There was a cadence to it. Yeah, yeah.
Well, there are books back here. Kristen's going to be here for conversation and to sell and autograph books. There's also refreshments. Please help yourself. So that's what they're for. So if you would like to take some with you, please do that. Because they're here to eat. And I really thank you for being here.
Thank you,
This was
Tom.
wonderful.
Thank you.